So, I'm Dave Kennedy, as probably introduced myself already. I work at One Part Carbon. As a developer, my background is quite colourful. It's started out back in 2001 as an electronic engineer, and I hated it. And I've done it for 9 years. I was programming in C and assembler exclusively, but in embedded control systems. Sorry?
You told the boss.
Who?
Your boss.
He knows, he's already got me into a few things. Yeah, we're doing some hardware at work, so I'm getting involved with all the stuff I got away from him. No, it's cool now because I can use cool stuff with it. Back then, you couldn't. Yeah, so I've done that, and eventually I started, getting. I was pretty sick of engineering and programming, C and assembler and all that all the time. So I was kind of into the web, and kind of got my foot in the door using a little language you might have heard of, PHP, and that kind of took me to a design agency, which was pretty terrible. And because I was a single developer there, so working 8 in the morning to 9 at night, that kind of things. But it was great because PHP in a design agency, if you're using HTML, which I kind of blagged on you about a lot. CSS, blagged that one, and JavaScript, didn't have a clue, but blagged it as well. But it's amazing how much you can learn when your mortgage is on the line. So JavaScript started coming in there, and kind of liked it. It was terrible stuff, but I also started moving into Ruby through a good influence on me, a chap, Jason Frame, who happens to do the best JavaScript talks in my opinion. And he kind of got me into Ruby, and started doing Ruby and not looked back since. So I'd say about 80% of my day job is back-end code, and it's all Ruby, and I like things like Ruby and all the good stuff about it. But JavaScript is something which I, if I'm working at home, doing little wee personal projects, it's usually in JavaScript, it's using Ember, it's using Angular, all the really cool stuff which I like. Not tried Hoodie or anything like that yet, but it's because I'm using Elixir as well just now, and I can't. The Erlang versions just didn't match up for Couch TV. Anyway, I dig it. So I've got a real love for JavaScript, especially in the last couple of years where I've been in a position to just keep trying new things in JavaScript. I was in last company I worked for, quite a big car sales company. Their front-end development workflow, it was pretty much typical of what I was used to doing. It was just organised. Well, it wasn't organised, it was chaos. Because the way assets were developed and deployed, we knew that. It's not like it was we wanted to brush it under the carpet. I mean, that's not to take them away. They were still shipping, and then the site was functional. But so they were, but it's kind of like we've all been in that project before. You've got a 1,000-line file with no text, global variables all over the place, which is common in JavaScript. Very, very common. Sometimes by accident. They're the real bad ones. But so we've all been in there. So I got a chance to develop some workflows within that company, and a lot of the ideas took hold, a lot of the other ideas got by wayside. But up until that point, it was something niggling us with the way I was doing my back-end code and how I was doing anything to do with JavaScript. And it was different workflows. Basically, what was happening was I was producing best of class Ruby back-end development. I should, not big-headed about it, but it was awesome stuff. But it was all. But the thing is, no, it was all tested. It was like there was nothing. We've all written well. No, you're quite right. Just because it's tested doesn't make it good. You're quite right, but it makes it better than that's untested. The same stuff untested is worse. Right, you're absolutely right, but you're also wrong. But but the thing is, I was producing, lots and lots. I had a workflow with Ruby. I'd write a test, watch it fail, make it pass, feedback, all good, all the good stuff. But when it came to JavaScript, I just kept piling on a bit more code and another bit more code. I'll just stick with there's a jQuery plugin. I've not even looked at the source of it, written by some kid in his bedroom, and we'll just fire it into my production app. And then all of a sudden, it's just no tests anywhere, throughout that entire workflow. And it we all know that's great, right? And hopefully we're not all doing that kind of thing, because what you end up with is something which, as soon as something comes back, you're like, right, okay, so we've got to do some maintenance rounds in here, or there's a bug round here, we've not got any tests, and you're like, this is your face. You're just like, nah, this is not going to be achievable, and we're not going to do it anytime soon. And so this great best of class back-end platform, you're serving up to the customer, the front end, polished turd on a silver platter. And that's basically what we're doing when we don't test our JavaScript, because it doesn't matter how fine JavaScript's not the core of the product for the developer side, but it's what the client sees, and it's what ultimately they pay for. They don't care how good my RSpec suite is and how quick my tests run, they couldn't give a shit. But what they do want is, have I delivered what they've asked for? And usually, it's a wee bit flashy. And that's the kind of thing which we've got to do. And every time that we ship a little bit of JavaScript untested, no matter how innocent or innocuous that is, it just causes a little bit of pain further down the line. And hence why I'm pretty, might coming across tonight, but I'm all for testing on JavaScript, and I suggest everybody does it. And there's a few reasons why, and I'm guilty of some of these, why JavaScript historically hasn't been tested. It's like we know about the browser issues. And this isn't about IE bashing, because you've got to remember that IE we wouldn't have Ajax, that kind of thing. But what would happen is, because we couldn't know how reliable the platform we were deploying our code was, means that a couple of myths have kind of built around the industry. I'm guilty of saying that, I don't mind. First one being, JavaScript's a design thing. Something for designers to do. Still to this day, in the not long ago past, I've still had stories on a Kanban board saying footer.js stuff, which just blows my mind, as we're talking about this polished silver turd, but this is, so it's kind of been seen as, something for designers to do. It's a little bit of eye candy, if this is still, in your day and age, if this is still your attitude, then there's something wrong. Especially since it's now getting so much easier to test the code. And there's actually quite some reliable resources out there which we can pull on to make our code better. Because before, it's the same, who does PHP anyway? Who uses it? Yeah, just the one. So you'll know, like myself, the reason PHP gets most of its bad rap is a lot of crap code out there. Because it's one of these accessible languages. Your barrier to entry is so low, your hobbyist can write a little PHP script and put it out there for the world. So by nature, at the time, a couple of years ago when I was a PHP developer and I was doing some, good design, well-designed PHP software, I'm sure you are as well. But the fact of the matter is, everyone's going, and it's the same with JavaScript, a lot of people still haven't got how good JavaScript is getting these days, because you've got to remember JavaScript was written in a couple of weeks, way back in just over 2 weeks. But I mean that version is obviously way different to what we have just now. Because Eclipse 6 is going to be another kind of leap, So this myth just doesn't hold any water anymore. The more we can try and kill it, the better. QA captures bugs. That's one of the big because this one pisses me off as well, because I worked 5 years in software testing. QA is not about bug catching. QA is about acceptance. Alright? So, if your QA is your last guardian for getting stuff out the door, it ultimately creates a bottleneck. So, by bringing our testing process and knowing that the correctness of the software is built in from the start of the project, then our costs are going to be lower. Because the further, whether it doesn't matter if you're in some kind of waterfall or whether you're agile, if you get to the end of a project and there's something seriously flawed in that project, that's going to cost you. Whereas if you catch all the things which are seriously wrong early, it costs much less because you're more, you're in a better position to change.
You've not built on top of it.
Sorry?
You've not built on top of it.
Exactly. So the foundations are, always a better nick if you can get that QA process. So this whole QA process, which, whether I've worked in agile teams where the QA process is bolted on to the end of the process, okay, it's a shorter process, it's a bit of a lower risk process, but still it doesn't really do much for your reputation. Where if you haven't been gathering feedback constantly throughout, so you question whether it's agile just now that people throw up the Kanban board and it's agile. And this kind of QA bolted onto the end is always, people think it's a safety net, it's a big gaping hole which is going to grab you. So let's kill that QA is all about bug catching, it's about acceptance, and the quicker we do it, and the more feedback we can get through the early stages of our project, the better. Next. It's just a wee bit. I've done it. I've totally done this kind of thing before. This is more of a middle, and that's why it's a bit smaller. Yeah, I've done it, and I still do it. I'm going on about how much I want to test stuff and all that, but then you've also got to trade off against what's the value of my test here. So if I've got like a third-party plugin with no test, but I've checked it and it's all right, and it kind of drops in and creates a slideshow and gets me past a certain hurdle and does a job, I can live with that rather than spending 3 weeks building one from scratch, test driven and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean this one is on a smaller scale, but we've always got to remember every time it's I just thought of this and just thought of that, and that builds that 1,000-line file with no tests in at some point. And yeah, so let's kill these myths. And one of the quick straw poll actually, who's actually testing JavaScript in the room? Cool. Right, well, who's actually using JavaScript on a regular basis in the room? Cool, just make sure it's cool. So, it's probably, there isn't really a target audience for this talk. This is more about trying to get a conversation started with this. It's about, this is how I see testing in the JavaScript world going. Because when I first started, I always knew I needed to do it, but that kind of, I'm one of these people who, am I doing this right? That's constantly in the back of my head, and that leads to that whole analysis. So it's really good that you guys are actually, the vast majority of us are already testing, so you guys are going to love this. So if you're not actually testing JavaScript or you want to, and you see a value in it, then this is going to be fantastic. Middle of the road, hopefully you pick something up, and if you're advanced, I'm sure you can argue about how wrong you are later on. Okay, so we'll get to that. So this is Dave's patented.
See how you test the technique actually are called because half the time you can DOM shit and you're manipulate the DOM and all these things which make it fucking impossible.
We're going to get to that because doesn't matter.
There's that in the past, that's why.
Yes.
That's why people haven't tested it, but when you're using the frameworks and building it out, so it does make it easy to test. So that's why, traditionally.
That's a very fair point. It's like testing JavaScript isn't hard. Testing jQuery is a pain in the arse. Pretty much, because that's a kind of field we're playing in just now. It is all DOM selectors and animations putting on like some jQuery selector element, which I've been using it for about 7 years and I don't know what's actually in a jQuery selector object. I don't know the deep internals of it. Anyway, so we'll get back to this. Well, I will actually come to like DOM stuff soon. So 7 sensible rules, right? These are more, I was going to call them the Kenny do's, right? But I thought, nah, we're going to go for 7 sensible rules. And basically, yeah, it's like anything. If you take on TDD without actually understanding TDD, you're going to gain some benefit from it at the start anyway. But in the long run, you're going to see the faults in it. But even at that, you still give yourself a very good start. And that is kind of what I want to get in these, but I'll talk more about them in a minute. So, the first rule of the game is now the 7 sensible rules. It's the framework itself. Now, if you go online, you're going to see, I don't know why, but there's loads. This is really, no, this is only like, this is what fits on a slide and looks kind of nice, right? There's a lot more than this out there, right? And yeah, you've got like a total overindulgence when it comes to choice. So I'd say that you're going to pick 2, and that's it. And you pick 1 and you go with it, but though that's 1 out of 2, alright? And they are QUnit and Jasmine. Either go for something. These are my rules. You want to talk? See you in February. QUnit and Jasmine, not vanilla Jasmine. So by limiting these are like kind of polar opposites of what you can do in terms of tests. You've got something really declarative like QUnit, and you're going to write a lot more code, test code, using QUnit. But the trade-off to that is just sheer simplicity. It's none of these fancy matchers or anything like that. There's another hand, Jasmine, and not vanilla Jasmine because it's terrible. It's actually Jasmine given. No, it's not. Of course, it's not terrible. The reason that I first started out in Jasmine because I was Ruby and I was using RSpec and similar syntax. Sounds great, but then you start getting these kind of flat teeth kind of files. So if you look down the left-hand edge of your file, you start seeing these kind of flat tooth shapes because you've got a describe, another describe, which is your context. So you're like, my God. And then you start questioning, like, should I have an if statement in my code? Because it's just going to keep doing that all the way down. Whereas QUnit, you don't have that kind of, you have modules. I'll get to a few examples of these anyway. But, first of all, Jasmine on its own, I feel it's a little bit too fancy for its own route. It's not somewhere to start. What I really like is Jasmine given. Now, Jasmine given, it's just a lot of examples. Yeah, you've got describe blocks. This is written in CoffeeScript, obviously. And so we've got a given, which sets up the premise, and we've got a then, which is an assertion. And then down here, we have a given, a when, and a then. So that we can just say, setting up one thing, we can test initial state. Here, we're setting up something new, calling some function on it, and then just checking the assertion. Now, the way this works is that very top given is, if we go with this guy here, that calc is obviously available in these two. Whereas here we've got this moving, which is our action on our car. Now that's like loaded lazily, evaluated. So basically that lets me do things like expect moving to be false. To be false. Anyway. And we expect moving to be true. So we can get that kind of nice cool stuff because this will go all down. Now you can imagine here, we're still getting this kind of flat tooth. And it's not half as bad as if you were writing, full-on big box things of it blocks everywhere. And I guess, and that's another reason not to use it because we don't really write documentation anymore. But we do. We write loads of it. we write it in our tests. Though every docs thing you write should be descriptive of what we're trying to test. And the reason we don't write home-style documentation is because it goes out of date very quickly. So can your tests if you're not. What do you mean?
It's bullshit, man, because like, it's not better than sitting to do documentation and get
I totally disagree, man. Now, this documentation, I've got a car, I've got parking, I've got another parking. Vanilla Jasmine, I have an it block which tells me it expects it to be moving. It expects it not to be moving or.
So you expect someone who picks up your library to know that's like a prerequisite already to do documentation to be able to read.
Well, I don't actually agree with that because, yeah, as developers we don't, right, I read a lot more code than I write, but very rarely do I want to look at doc strings to tell me how things work. I'll look at a test by all means to get how something works, but the doc strings to me, still, well, probably this might be me, you guys tell me any different, but what I'm looking at is the assertions and what I'm expecting to have, and I'll take a look at the setup. I'll take a look at how we're, you know.
I just have to look at an example.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
An example, a proper real example.
Well, that's something which we can maybe look at in terms of JavaScript, you know, putting runnable examples because language is like Elixir. I think Python has it as well. I don't know, is there any Python guys in? I'm sure Python has runnable examples in your test hub. And basically that runs as part of your test suite. I know for a fact that Elixir has it. And I find it very nice. And I'd love to see something like that here. But anyway. Yeah, it's I just prefer that syntax and like over vanilla Jasmine. And the other thing that Jasmine gives us, which I really want to talk about as well, is stubs, mocks, spies. You know, so basically what we're talking about, if it's DOM events happening, the only real way you're going to have like a click event testing both pass or a click event is usually with some kind of callback in there. Because usually these things are happening as a side effect. You know, so we're not really that interested on that click event, but we just want, it usually happens in some procedure where you have, you know, on this click, do this, do this, do this, and then the callback function, and usually in some anonymous function, which is how we're going to test that. So what we do is we pass it off. You know, we pass it off into a named function, which we can then test as normal. But then, well, oh my god, are we sure we've bound that correctly? And the only way you're going to test that is with something like spies. But the Jasmine spy library gives us basically, we've got fake objects, we've got stubs and we've got mocks. Who is familiar with those terms? Go on. Are you? Yeah? You're a yeah? So, I don't know if I need to cover them, but I will, because it's very important to pad out the time when I talk. So, we've got fake, so basically we're just a canned response of something. So the idea being that you guys show up here and hear Yehuda or John Rising to talk about JavaScript and get me, and I think, you know, so enjoy. Stubs, right, so this is a thing, you know, these are the things which usually return the fake objects. But, you know, you can't just have a plain old kind of dead stub. I've seen it happen for things like API requests and whatnot. It's just dead, and this is this kind of side effect code that I find if you're writing a lot of that kind of thing, probably somebody's doing a little bit too much. Is my personal opinion on it, but it's one thing I don't particularly use that often, like just a dev stub that just cans a call. Usually I'm always expecting something back from my stubs, a fake object back from my stubs. And of course mocks. I was actually trying to think of bar a spy, you know, that I pass through and check and call parameters on. Basically I don't tend to use, because The Jasmine mocks you can actually set up as full expectations on, because like, the whole thing with spies is you can actually pass through to the original implementation as well, and then check certain things were called during that run. That feels a little bit black box for me, and I can't say that I use mocks that often, except in the way of true spy callback type stuff. So I don't know if anyone's got any opinion on that. Okay. Anyway, so I mean, but these are the things which I was kind of alluded on earlier that make testing the DOM a lot less painful because you can pass in. Basically, you're taking all that kind of anonymous function crap out of your DOM on your click events and remove events and load events, and basically you can just pass through callbacks, make sure the callbacks are all exercising the right ways by using a spy in its place, and then test your named functions, like any other unit test, and that's the kind of thing which is really working for me just now. The other one I mentioned, kind of.
I was just going to attempt to sort of try and throw a wee bit more of the mock stuff sort of thing.
Please do.
And I'll be quiet at that one, but it kind of builds on what Steve was saying at school around. With the mock side of things, usually you're saying that this object should have been called with X, Y, and Z, and it should return this, and if it doesn't get called with that, inside the function or method that you're testing, it goes bang. But that sort of form of testing is more geared towards being around the interactions between objects and functions. And it's like, this thing will call that in such and such a fashion, and it must do it just so. And while the stub and the spy approach are more sort of, here's my box, here's what I put in, and here's what I expect it to come out the other side, or here's what I expect the state of the object to be in, or whatever it is. Which tends to out-test.
No, I mean that's a better explanation.
I mean, but less. So you can refactor the internals of the function, and it still has the same. You give it the same input, still get the same output, so your tests still pass. While if you maybe start calling a different method on a name of an object that does something similar, your mock will start failing because you're calling a different method or function.
Yeah, that's on mocks, but I mean, like, use stubs quite, almost liberal, quite, not when I can put in a real object, but I mean, stub testing, I wouldn't say don't do it, and I certainly wouldn't say don't use mocks or anything like that either. And I know that's not what you were saying, but, it just sounds like, there's a lot of negative things using mocks, what you were just saying there, But it's one of these ones when you get to know the power of mocks, and you start to understand, because I've also been in a position where I've seen lots of tests, probably written a couple of my early days which just do nothing except exercise a mock, and causes assertions on a mock which test always passes, but your application bust. So it's certainly one of these things, it's an experience thing with these kind of things.
There's a place for all of them, but that's things to sort of steer away from.
Yeah, but it's only through doing a lot of testing that I've actually been able to go like that, right, this is in here and I can actually use these in the way it benefits myself. I don't know if that makes no difference to you guys, how I pick and choose when I use a stub or a mock, but it's like one of these things if you're not you, I mean, who's using spies on a kind of regular basis? Yeah, guys. Well, you can use them pretty much every time I do a little bit of JS development. I'm probably one of these guys. But.
So the only thing I do what is you put the expectations on an object, is that you run your test and it breaks, because you're no longer calling that within your something else to make something go like that. Why the fuck was that doing that before? Somebody else comes and looks at it, and then, okay, if you get some idiot that looks calling and just go, I'll take that out as an expectation, but why is that done by accident?
Yeah, but the thing with these Jasmine spies, if you're trying to stub out something on an object, it won't actually stub out a non-existent object like some other test frameworks. And so you will actually have to make sure that exists. Now, that existing only has to be if you're carrying the response of that with a fake object, then sure, your tests are just going to keep passing even if, you know, the API changes, you know, but the idea is that if you change the API of like your production object and you haven't updated your mock, then you're going to get that mock failure because it won't know how to stub undefined, which is pretty cool. Because obviously functions we push that objects, whatnot. Cool. Mechanics going to park spies at that point. Quite read to it, but it's kind of sounding like most of us are familiar with them. The other framework which I mentioned but didn't give any example on is QUnit, and I just love that. I mean, that's to me that makes a lot of sense. No fancy matchers on it. We've got things like strict equal, equals, but equal. You've got OK for truthiness. You know, it's like just really simple matchers. This is our kind of before block type syntax up here. This module you can group together, so, you know, certain parts of tests. You know, this is obviously in JavaScript as well. It's also just as nice as CoffeeScript, you know. And yeah, I mean, there's not too much you can say about QUnit because it's so simple. And then, you know what I mean, like, one of the other things with Jasmine is you usually throw something like Jasmine jQuery in the mix, and then you've got like a whole other shed of like matchers on there, and that's like should have CSS and all that kind of thing. I've been caught out quite a lot with that kind of stuff, like especially the empty stuff. For DOM elements, I've been caught out with that quite a bit. And I've actually just resorted to going back to like this test unit style, and if I want to check for like child selectors, I'm just using something like just a length, which is usually quite nice if I can get away with it, or like an underscore that's empty. I've not actually mentioned like underscore in this talk. It's not necessarily those, but yeah, you should use it. We'll make it 8. Yeah, but one of the things with QUnit is like you don't have that whole spy set up or any of that kind of functionality in QUnit, because QUnit's one thing, does the job well. So that's where we come to, and it was mentioned on the way back slide where I just had the wall of text goes, and that's Synon. Anyone using Synon? I'll correct to this and I don't read the slide too much. Anyone using Synon? No, well, it's an assertion library as well, but it also has some really cool spy stuff. And so it has stubs, mocks, dates, as does Jasmine, but it also has two really cool things. There's a fake server and fake timer. And fake server. Fake timer, I can't say I've used too much of. It's for testing things like animations. So if you've got a box line to the right, then you can tick a clock and see that the CSS is in such and such a position. So I don't really do too much of that stuff, but it's pretty good. What I do a lot of is making calls to an API. So basically, I mean, I stubbed jQuery Ajax before. It's a pain. Right, so what we do is like we pass through the Synon, so that means any Ajax or XHTML request go to this fake server, and we can take out a response, which we've got here. So basically, we're creating a server up in our setup, just saying any calls made to set URL as a GET request, return it 200 with this piece of JSON as a string. And basically, then we can, I've just got a callback in here, just saying, right, so this GET comments takes a callback, and then that callback, I want to make sure that's called with this guy as a JavaScript object. It's kind of way down on the other result, and then basically I've just called, alright, was that guy checked? I've actually missed. No, because I've called it up there. I was worried that it's called with, that's my assertion, that's on the Synon stubborn framework, and basically I'm just saying, okay, result. But this is called with the same attributes. So if you're not using Synon, and you're using something quite naked like QUnit, then you've got, I suggest like you start looking at something like Synon for, oh yeah, so you can use Synon as a test framework in itself, but then I'm going against the rules, man, so don't want to do that,
Angular has like a mock HTTP, like,
right.
Same idea as that.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure. What is it? What is it? Angular testing by default? Is it?
Karma.
Well, Karma is.
Oh,
Yeah, what's your test framework? Karma's
Jasmine.
like Jasmine. Right, cool. We're covering Karma. I'll leave it down, but we can talk about Karma just now. Actually, like, do you know what Karma is? It's like testing your JavaScript in real browsers, and it's really, really cool. Yeah, and so basically you just create a server that runs. I'm not going to, but you can get I've got a wee example of it, but I'm going to talk about this soon in the automation bit. But yeah, Karma is one of these funny ones because it's like unless you've got every target browser on your machine or it is a virtual machine, it's when you start hooking Karma up to something like BrowserStack or TestLink. Is that what you guys are doing? No. Well, it's been trying for a while to get it going, but that's cool to me. Then it's run as almost like a CI job. Not that it takes a long time or anything, but if you have all these different virtual machines running on your, because what Karma does is like it runs your tests in specific browsers, which you're targeting. And the thing is, if you put on something like BrowserStack, then you're also running this JavaScript on mobile devices, which is really cool. And the tests are all run simultaneously, so that you're testing Chrome, Firefox, iOS, Safari, it's really cool stuff. This is I'm just looking at the next slide, and yeah, we're going to test coffee, drink JavaScript. This is an experiment I've been running myself for like the last 3-4 months, and it's all personal projects. I don't get away with this kind of thing in my day job because I'm not paid to mess with all this heads on a regular basis. But basically all my tests, I think it makes sense to write them in CoffeeScript because I can get away with smaller syntax. But my production code, I want that in JavaScript, which shouldn't really make much of a difference. But there's the real reason behind it was one day I couldn't use a ternary operator in CoffeeScript, and why not? I mean, I know these kind of things, that I know how to use them, I know when to use them, so I don't need CoffeeScript telling me, you need to use an if, else block, that kind of thing. But what? No.
You can't even CoffeeScript put if, then else.
Oh, right, or if unless and all that, but that looks ugly.
But you just do it simply.
I want a ternary operator in there, man. No, I think because there comes another thing with the ternary operator. Well, I guess it's not. It gets a little bit confused because you've got that CoffeeScript question mark, which is a null or undefined check. I don't really see. That's just syntactic sugar for me as well, So you're right. You can put it on one line, but I mean, I don't do that in my other kind of code. I don't particularly like to do that kind of thing. I find it makes it quite hard to read. So, I know you can argue the same thing for a ternary operator. As I said, these are manuals, so we can argue about it later. I actually want to argue with you about it.
There's no argument, I'm just, it's a ternary operator.
Yeah.
It's not an expression.
Yeah, we all know how to do them. I mean, I don't see why that decision should be taken away from you. But that's not the only reason. It's also that, when you look at a lot of packages out there, and I've not really found any mainstream packages that have its source on CoffeeScript. And the other thing with the source being in CoffeeScript is that you're going to need some kind of, compile step in there. So if you're getting, there's another thing you've got to learn, another barrier to someone using your library. So I say, no, let's just give them this. Give them a JavaScript. If you don't know how to run the tests in CoffeeScript, then they're screwed if they're going to try and compile the source as well. So I say just give them a JavaScript. So that's one.
So you see Git JavaScript, so you could have written it in CoffeeScript before comparing it yourself.
Well, you could have done that as well, but
but you could tell the difference.
Well, you could tell a difference. The CoffeeScript compiler is probably going to look a hell of a lot different than the way a human would write it. It will be. It will be because you've got the whole fat stabby in CoffeeScript, which does some crazy stuff with some underscore named variables and all that. And hardly anyone I know writes JavaScript like that. Anyway, that's my kind of take on it. So I think, yeah, production code's in JavaScript. Yeah, you're testing CoffeeScript, so you're getting the benefit from the nicer syntax in your test, because that's where we're going to be writing more code than our production stuff, in theory anyway. But still, you've always got that kind of ready to go step of JavaScript. Next thing looks like another room, fixture files. Man, really bad idea. Now we've kind of got stuck in this with Jasmine jQuery as well, because that lets you load in the HTML files. Kind of what we're talking about earlier, like separate DOM elements. And do you know what? Those files are never, ever going to get smaller. You know, no one's actually going to take stuff out of that fixture file. It's going to come out on the ground. And then you've also got this kind of weird coupling between a file which doesn't really run any tests under it and your view layer as well. You need to keep the two of them in sync. Now, that's fine, but if we can take it out of a fixture file and put it actually within our test, then that's us removed one file that we have to open and know about. So in your setup, if you're creating those DOM elements within a setup, I think it's far better than that. And also, if you're able to load in, because it's easy to write HTML, you know, that's a problem. We can build most elements within HTML. But when you start loading up your like kind of setup with full of like making a big string of DOM elements or something like that, you're going to know something's a little bit iffy. And really, this is all it kind of takes, and this actually comes from a real piece of code, which myself and Peter have written. Yeah, your name's on this one. So basically building up a wrapper with a select, and then we're putting in a couple of options. And it's all done quite easily, and then you can set val, pass and field, and then we'll just adopt, you know, appending these options within. This is all kind of done anyway. We don't have anything in the DOM until that kind of thing, but even that is only happening in memory still, and then we can test on that kind of memory. So it's still not polluted our test runner. And you can basically drop this in the DOM, much like we've just done here with the jQuery append. And I just find, like, see when you're doing this, it keeps an eye on the ball of how your test is going, rather than having a fixture file which you usually won't even have open.
So you just said you drop this into the DOM?
You can drop into, sorry, the test runner DOM.
You could, well, you know, I would assume you would take those nodes and pass them in.
If that's the way you're going, but if this was on kind of integration test, where we're going to actually trigger an event off it, then this is no real use. We can actually have it within a DOM. But it gives us the option of doing either or. It's sorry, the point I'm clumsily fumbling towards, so cheers for that. Yeah, so hopefully we won't be running big fixture files anymore. Now we get to go to automation. This is what it's all about. Grunt, who's using Grunt? Okay, Jake. Is anyone not using any jQuery build automation? Yeah. Like how you guys like building and running the test? And are you using like a common JS style or something like that? Sorry?
I don't use JS.
Alright, sorry.
I just purely PHP.
Alright, cool. Sorry what happened we're doing it. Nah, it's just I have been in a situation where we've had, I kind of talked about it earlier, where we have a HTML file which we're opening with a file protocol in the browser, and then if you're trying to load in HTML files from a fixture, then you can't screw there because we've got the course to worry about. But that kind of thing is what I used to do. I mean, it's easy enough to spin up something like a Python server, and then you can start running your test section there. But I'm not a huge fan of refreshing my browser every time I want to change my code. So we can bring in something like Grunt, which is going to automate all our builds. So if we've got CoffeeScript in our test, it's going to compile our CoffeeScript. It's then going to do a lot of copying of our stuff. You can get concatenation for free as well. You can bring that in just part of the CoffeeScript compile command. And so automation, I think, is pretty important if you're going to start getting your JavaScript testing down. And this is where I kept talked about Karma earlier as well. You can bring Karma into the mix as well, so you can run your QUnit or Jasmine specs. And, probably guessed, like, I'm a big fan of Grunt, but there's other ones out there. There's Jake, which is the one which, and he's watched the Let's Code JavaScript screencast, Jim Shore. So he uses Jake, and it's what he spoke about at GlasgowJS last year. And, I mean, that looked fine, it's just I found, like, Grunt to be, I don't know, but a nicer approach to it. And it also seems to have a lot of, you know, basically the Grunt maintained plugins, things like stuff to compile your Java, coffee scripts, things to run your tests, or concatenation JS hinting, which is probably not given enough weight on here, so you should be hinting your code. Or if you bring this into like an automated step, then we don't have to worry about that thing. Also, we don't have to worry about remembering to run our JS linting, because the amount of times I've been caught out by a parsing 08. And the most modern browsers you'll get away with that, but older browsers you'll get a 0. That's my head in. Because we've got to pass that matrix to it. So the linking we've got. So yeah, automate your build flow. I'd like to have got some more examples of this for you. Well, I did have time, it's just I didn't do it. Sorry? Yes, but if you're thinking about getting into it, take a look at the Ember app kit. If you know about that, it's basically it's the best. Grunt is a kind of a funny one, it's got good documentation, but not great documentation. It's pretty overwhelming when you first come to it. And basically, what? Documentation. Well, you kind of got me, not code. There's always one, isn't there? Do you enjoy that pizza? It's your last. Well, anyway, but basically I went to Grunt because I started looking at Yeoman. So you've heard of Yeoman. Yeoman seemed too much for me. Wow, oh my god. So I started looking at what made Yeoman tick, started looking at the source, started looking at the tests, not the documentation, just the tests. And then, that kind of stuff. And so that kind of got me into building my own Grunt, task building my own Grunt. I've actually got my own thing with Grunt is it's paid to set up for the first time, but you get initializer templates, which then let you produce. And I've got one out there called Squire, which is a web app generator with a bit less yield to it because it does all these rules, funnily enough, bar the one about drinking JavaScript. It's actually got the source and CoffeeScript itself. I've got to change that around. But I've done it before I started experimenting. But pull requests I got there. But you can take a wee look at that if you want, and I'll let you also get a wee. I've got a couple of examples of it. But the Ember app kit, which I was talking about, is by far the best setup I've seen for Grunt. It lets you modularize your Grunt file using like a kind of CommonJS pattern, which is just really cool. So you can actually have reusable chunks of Grunt tasks, that's the trick I was always missing. So there's a big factor coming to Squire soon. The next rule would be proportional code. This is something which our man Peter here, it's something I've known, but it's something I've never actually, those two words used together to describe it as well. And it's basically making sure that the amount of your test code is proportional to what it's testing. So if you've got 50 lines of setup to put 5 lines, something's wrong. So this is always trying to keep, and some things require a bit more setup. And I've kind of found it's like a 5-to-1 ratio, really, at the most. Seems a lot, but that's kind of what I've found. But I mean, helper functions can be built in there if we're kind of using these kind of things. But this isn't a rule. This is something I can watch out for.
That's the best example. That's how the should have matches.
Sorry? Yeah, I mean, that's a great example. I mean, I don't know how many people know about should have matches in the room. Basically, Rails has this validation on its models, which are basically an ORM on top of the database. So you have validates predicts of this column name. Uniqueness validation, so make sure that another thing can't have a column name in it with two of the same names in it. So that's, with one line we get that, with Rails it's not done in a database, like it's done in an application. But to test that, it's at least 7, 8 lines of code, kind of.
You could look at another example, you want to say, look, well, here it is unique.
Yeah, well,
it's a valid object, and here it is, but there's another database.
Yeah,
it's
so
invalid, so you've got a dozen lines.
So basically, you can get up to that real advanced. I never thought about just setting up. You create one record, and then you create another record for the same, and then make sure that you can, and then you've got to check that you can actually do that. But should a matchers as a kind of a macro, it's just a kind of helper, where we can say should validate the uniqueness of column name, and it's a single line, and that will do all that kind of thing for us. So that's proportionality for code then coming back into balance. Still testing the things which we should have done. I mean, you could argue that that's framework code anyway. Still, it does a lot more, especially if you're on the relation stuff. It also checks for primary keys, association, stuff like that. So I find a lot of benefit in it. But through that proportionality of code, that's what we're talking about, just the matches as a gem. But to build more proportionality code, then we can actually pull stuff out into like a helper library, something along the lines which we can take along to other projects, so we find common patterns for our projects. That's the sort of tool belt that we can carry along with us.
I think something that would sort of fall out of that is kind of like, the validation and whatnot in rules, for example. It's like, here is stuff that you can be writing time again that's been well factored down into the macro. While, like, if you didn't know that should have matched those field tests to actually cover that would be bigger. Huge. But if you refactored your tests, you move towards that.
Yeah.
So it's something to encourage you there.
Is
this a smell in the test code, or is it Soros, or actually is there a pattern here that you can actually extract?
It just means I will probably not factor in it, especially because it will become a recurring pattern. The more we want to check the uniqueness of the keys, if it only happens once in that project, then okay, but I digress.
Okay.
Yeah. Next rule, design just enough. I had this as a little, but I was surprised that just enough is actually an I just enough. Now this is the whole thing about TDD. I don't know when you have. It's hard, isn't it? I find it hard. Right? I mean, if I'm coming to a project with nothing, no real knowledge about it, then there's no way I'm going to sit down and start a test without knowing anything about my domain. And even when I do have some knowledge in it, I could sometimes, unless it's something real bread and butter, day-to-day type stuff, there's no way which I think I'd just go down and start writing a test. And when you read these books about TDD, like Red, the Factor, that kind of cycle, it sounds, well, it is sensible, it sounds easy, and you can take small steps and it gets there. But what I think's missing there is that minute where you go, right, we're about to do some code. That time it takes them to get to their keyboard. These guys are, these guys who have written these books and given these talks, they're so in tune with what they're doing. They've got so much experience. They've designed it. They know how their apps roughly going to hang together. And I think that part of the code is going to hang together. I think that's missed and it's forgotten about a lot. That, I don't believe in just, if I keep test driving this, I'm going to get something. Don't get me wrong, I think test driving can obviously help my design, but it's not going to be my design. And I've got to know how I think a certain module is going to hang together. And that comes natural. Now, what test-driven design will do is start getting harder and harder if you're going down the wrong path, and that's this whole thing about test talking to you. But again, these guys are writing about red bean factor. As soon as they get that little wince, these guys off on a new path, and by the time they've made that decision, they've probably designed their next route. And for a guy like me, who's not like just done a JS opinion talk, I'll go, I was a wee bit painful that one, but I'll go ahead and write a new next text, and not really. And then I'll get so far, then I've got a little bit more pain about how to do it if I haven't done a little bit of design up front. So this is about, don't design your entire application end to end, but know enough about what the problem you're trying to solve. And don't just go by regular factor without knowing anything about what you're actually trying to achieve. And I only mention that because I've done it. I don't know if anyone else has. Certainly, it's like when you read the programming patterns book, then everything looks like a pattern. And all you do is code patterns on this and that. Kind of goes back to as well about CoffeeScript, because CoffeeScript gives you a kind of JavaScript and production coding, and because CoffeeScript will do things in a nice idiomatic way for you, but sometimes I don't want it. So, yeah.
I don't agree.
Go for it.
You're talking about the guys that write the books and then somebody go to the keyboard. There's something very organic about test-driven development. But I would counter that at the same time with you've got a framework a lot of the time to fit in with. And if you've got a framework, you've at least got a code base to fit in with. So you've got to have some entry point into where this new feature is going to live. Mm-hmm. But it depends on what it is you're coding and how it's being done. It's like the real stuff here. It's very easy to do it here.
Mm-hmm. That's a Rails application. When you're right, you're kind of confined within. I mean, that's one of the beauties of Rails.
Or is it just someone using it the right way?
Sorry?
Or is it just someone using it the right way?
No, I think if we're finding a lot of pain, and you see it in Rails, and to get it into like JavaScript land, the Ember is a big one. Like if you start doing things in non-Ember way, you're going to find it painful. But I like that about it.
I'm going to you, I think that's stuff.
Oh, Jesus, I
have no idea. I've changed it about 20 times. The wrong thing. And just
so if you're building some, I mean, even gems have a kind of standard layout, but if you're building a gem to do something which you're not quite sure about how you're doing, I mean, the way I usually approach it is like I'll get the vocabulary of my domain written on a whiteboard somewhere. So I would say, right, okay, so let's say I'm doing some JSON partial library because we've not got any of them, right? So, I'll get like a request, I'll get a response, I'll get a header, I'll just get all these words down on the board because that kind of roadmaps. Okay, I could be creating this kind of objects. Now that's been done, I've not designed how things hang together yet, but I've got an idea of the component parts, and that's what I mean by just enough. It's not like I'm not going to go there, I'm going to write this library, parse JSON in JavaScript, and immediately know. I don't have that fall together, but I don't think, there's been a lot of times when I've found myself creating objects which too many responsibilities on them. Yeah, and then you've got to pull all those out. Whereas a little bit of design, I'm not talking about big design, just a tiny little bit, gets my head in the right place, is what I'm trying to get at. Is that sitting with you better? Or?
I think that's, and how our job tends to work, I would say that's how it fits in with how we do our Rails development. Mm-hmm. If you find yourself more like, say you were doing a JavaScript front end and you were refactoring your code and you had models, views, and controllers, and this is where any frameworks involved.
Well,
that's going to evolve organically, and over time you keep everything clean and tidy, you retest. At the same time, you've kind of been evolved your own code base, and you'll be refactoring that, so next time you come to a task, you're like, well, this will fit in such and such a way.
It
depends what it is.
We've kind of found that with a project we're actually doing in work just now. We've not used any of the well-known frameworks. It is a little bit of a widgety frameworks, and when I thought about it when I went home and like Backbone seemed like a really good fit for what we're doing, but it's just we never implemented it. And we've still not got to the point where we say, Backbone, it's not using. That's not really going to happen anyway, right? Because Backbone isn't there to solve problems. It's not going to solve new problems for you, it's going to help you keep your code in order. But we're kind of managing that by ourselves, But yeah, I know what you mean, but what we've kind of developed is almost this tiny little framework, which isn't going to go anywhere, but we've got enough utilities in there which we can pull on to do the job which we want to do. But that came out of test-driven development, but there was a couple of chats between the pair, about how we actually wanted to approach stuff. And that's what, again, just enough design. We no way did we do an end-to-end implementation website. However, if we get this object, do that kind of thing, and then things kind of fall. And then you let the tester and the TDD tease out all the nice little edge cases to file this so that you test. Okay. Yeah, unit testing, everything. Now, this one, I don't know, this came out of kind of what you were talking about as well. It's like a lot of the testing I see for JavaScript is loading up the DOM and just making sure stuff happens. And it's this kind of black box test, what I would call an integration test, where you're kind of letting all your stuff run riot, within. Then you're kind of, I just feel like it's firefighting because you've loaded up the DOM, you're going to trigger some event, it's going to talk to some API, come back for it once you're going to populate your API. And I've seen that written as a single test, but not as it basically was the only test that existed. And I've seen that, for things, browser-based applications, then an integration test is really all we need, and I don't agree with that either. I couldn't do that, so that's why I don't agree with it. But, so bringing things down, if you're always thinking a unit testing mindset, then you're going to make smaller, more testable objects. You're going to design your code in a more testable way. Whereas, I've certainly written, well, probably the first time I talked to TDD with JavaScript was I loaded up the DOM with I triggered an event, written API, populated in one test, and my code was a shit state. And then, where nowadays, if I'm unit testing, I'm not only just thinking about the behaviour of the system, I'm also thinking about how am I going to test that? How am I going to, and it's one of the benefits of creating testable code is like more likely going to have better quality code and more robust code. More code with less side effects. Yes. Okay. Yeah, in some instances, yes, that's how far I'll go. But, yeah. And the whole point of unit testing, we all know TDD, but I do want to get this out. I do want to get out because James Shore talks about R, which is a range. That's it. Set. And we kind of saw that in him, but I prefer, because we're in Scotland, SPAR, which is set up, poke, alright, and then reset. So basically this is the kind of thing, so you're setting up, loading up the DOM, poking an interaction, checking it's okay, and then resetting it, so clearing out the DOM element and all that. But yeah, so unit testing is not particularly hard, and like all these kind of test libraries, automation, all that all kind of comes as plugins for things like Grunt as well. Anyway, so hell, we should be doing it. And I think, just going back to this large, there is certainly a place for integration tests. I think there should be at least one integration test per feature of your code, but that should, the number of unit tests, again, proportionality here, the number of unit tests should weigh your biggest. I think I've actually heard it being described, trying to get your car keys off your hotel room's bed by using a coat hanger through the keyhole. And that's what an integration test feels for me. I'm trying to solve a problem and with quite a hard way, whereas I get a really, really thick interface if I go through like my unit tests instead.
So you have the choice of only putting one or the other, and you choose.
Well, but me checking the browser after I've written a load of unit tests could be an integration test. Could be. It's not what I'd want, because I want to automate everything back to that other.
It's quite often you can't do everything. You can't. I'll say I'm going to make all these integrations. I'm going to do all these unit tests because sometimes time doesn't. Time. If time's a factor, then yeah, that's. Okay, but there's another argument there, and it's a canned argument. Like, do you have time not to unit test? Of course I do. Because if the fact is that you're not going to pay your mortgage, and then you have a relationship.
But well, that's a totally different setup. That's right. If I was in a design society, I've had my job trying to do it a long time ago. I'm going to have to TDD that. No, that just wouldn't have happened. But luckily, I've since removed myself from that situation, and hopefully,
someone's in that situation somewhere.
You're absolutely right. I feel really bad for them.
That's what was kind of irritating you with developers, and the fact that they don't think like someone's actually paying the wage, someone's actually not fucking.
No, but like
I'm going to have to sell my house to fund this.
No, but at the same time, like I'm not doing this stuff for a laugh. I'm not test driving my code just to burn money here.
That is a reality, though.
No, you're right. There is that reality, but I feel really bad about it. But I can't do anything about it. What I'm interested in is like producing the best software that I possibly can in the quickest possible way that I can, with higher quality. Now, we're going back because I've been in that situation where if I sat down and say I want to spar this and like it's going to take me. That's a 3 point. I'd just been looked at funny and probably handed my job to anyway. Because I've been in that position where I've wanted to crawl under the desk every night and cry because it's just that intense because the urgency to ship. And it doesn't matter what shipped. Because it didn't matter what shipped until it broke, and then my ass was on the line again anyway. Whereas if I'd taken time to spar it, it's going to catch on. Right? That I wouldn't be in that kind of situation. If we go back to the thing where I was talking about like building quality in at the start of the project rather than at the end. I mean, because as soon as you give clients some crap, and it happened a lot in design changes, and it could have been me, but I don't think it was, and I'm not being big-headed about it. Sometimes it was me, but a lot of the time it wasn't, just because I didn't have the time to develop these things properly, and I didn't have a regression suite on it or anything. But that's out with the client and out in the wild, and then bombs drop off when some condition comes which I didn't account for or just didn't even know about it, because I haven't been through that kind of, because TDD gives you that kind of learning process as well. Because by the time you've TDD'd on your code, you know what inside out, you know about it, because you're going to ask the questions. So yeah, I mean, I do appreciate that there are people in situations just trying to get stuff out the door. But I don't think this topic's for them. I wish it was, but no, it's not.
I think it comes back to something we were talking about earlier today. When it comes to software development, there's kind of like 3 sort of variables you play in dealing with the client. You've got time, you've got scope, you've got quality. And if you let the client deal with all of them and pick and choose them all, then you've lost already. Because they want well, I don't. Generally, what we tend to do is like the client can have time and scope, and so if they want things sooner, they need to choose less things. If they want to go longer, then that's fine, they can put more things in. But we equal the quality. And you must have control over both these sides. And quality is up full, because if it's not, then the client's not going to have there's some sort of feedback or something going wrong. But the less quality that is built into the application, the lower the quality, the less leads your customer are going to be, the bigger problems are going to be found by them, and how happy are they going to be. You've got to get something out the door, and you've got to actually find something that's the core stuff, like the shaky foundations we were talking about earlier. So, oh shit, something we built everything at the top end. We need to start again. And in terms of time, and if you bought a car and you found it actually, then you take it back and you move on to it and replace it for free. That doesn't seem to happen for the software development, but if it did, how many does it do in the world?
I was thinking something. It's something's not. If you're not getting your money to pay your mortgage, you're out. So you can see like everything one of it but if you don't get that money in, then there's no more point being principled about it. That's much more important.
But the thing is, Greg. The thing is, like, that's fine. You can get stuff out quick. without test driving it. Right? That's cool, and you'll get your money.
It really happens.
No, but you'll be in business, you know, and then you've got another client on board, and this is like the whole startup type of thing, you know, where you're getting things done quick, getting shit done, you know, and it's like, that's cool. And then the next milestone comes along, and you do the same thing, and the next milestone comes along, do the same thing. You've still not written a test, but you've got like a 10,000 line code base. Then comes the point where you can't ship. It's going to happen because your code base will get such a mess because you've not had the time on it. And what we tend to call that is technical debt. Right? And it's Jim Shore talked about it at GlasgowJS, and he put it better than the best way I've heard it is like that kind of technical debt is the loan shark coming to your door with a baseball bat, because the minute you can't ship, that's your business gone. So it's kind of getting that marrying between the business success and technical success, which that will come at some point. And if it's a one-wee web-page restaurant website, that's probably not going to come, and you're right, get it out the door.
No, I was just saying it's good, like, as in, it's not one view, you know what I mean, all that is just like, but you just do it to hear that from the others, that's the way it should be done. But the reality is, people like Facebook and Google, they get all that.
This actually,
and they still need bills.
This actually leads nicely on to like my last slide, man. And it's like the 7 sensible rules. You've all heard them, you've all obviously taken them on board. But I mean that alone, that statement's bullshit. Anyway, because I mean rules, it comes down to things like law, demeanour, single responsibility, principle, these big names that we put on these things, like, yeah, demeanour's never really shown up 4:30 on a Friday and helped me with a hot deploy or something like that. That hasn't happened because I'm a developer and there's a reality to some things. And as much as I want to always do technical success and technical excellence, sometimes it's not appropriate in the situations which we just discussed. So calling it 7 things. And these 7 sensible things are in a weighted scale. So if you, I should really have had them down at the start. I've forgotten that. So things which I talked about at the beginning of the talk were actually the least important. So out of these 7 things, if you do 3 of them, and it's the last 3 things we spoke about, then good on you. But if all you do is the first 4 things, you may as well have done nothing, because you're going to get real no benefit of what we're talking about. So things like JavaScript, CoffeeScript. I didn't just put it in there as a red herring. I genuinely believe, you know, that's a good way to go. Picking QUnit or Jasmine, you know, I don't really care. If you're honest, like just test your JavaScript, you know. I'm not worried if it's either or. So these things, they're the low pecking order. Whereas, like if you're unit testing everything, you know, and if you've got that automation involved, they're the real important things, you know. So if you only do 2 of them, and it's the last 2 things we spoke about, then I think you're in a really great position. But if you only do 2 and it's the first 2, like you're going to use QUnit and, you know, make your test off, you've got nothing. And there was a little bit of a red herring in the talk regarding that. So that's why I want to call it just 7 sensible things. I think you'll get a lot of benefit if you just pick 1 or 2 variables, but yeah, it's just for me. You know, it's honestly the thing about test driving on JavaScript, testing in general, is just always going for technical excellence. And there's I think there's a Mary Poppins book. Can't remember which one, but it's one of the old ones. And basically, she made the hypothesis that the only way that you're ever going to mitigate risk as a software developer is by technical excellence. And that is, I can kind of see where she's coming from with that. So if you're always unit testing, you're always building to the best possible standards, then you're going to bring along that technical success, and which will help the business succeed more. Because if you're constantly in this kind of firefighting situation where you're just always putting out crap, then the business is going to fail anyway. Because at that point where you can no longer ship and come quicker. So that's me. I don't really finish, I just kind of peter out. So, So thanks again.
Just tell us off the clap.
And okay, brilliant. So thanks again, guys. And yeah, we can't be talking all the way through it, but I'm open for questions. That suits me. Cool. Thanks.